Hello everyone and welcome to another Genshin Theory video. Today, I'll be talking about the many flowers of Genshin and how they could hold some hidden meanings. I'll be going over the symbolism of these flowers and even connections to the four shades. Also, if you like this video, consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot and I'd really appreciate it. With all that said though, let's get right into the video. To start off, I'd like to mention the sea of flowers at the end seen in the Travail trailer and other promotional material for the game. This is a mysterious place, the location of which is currently unknown. In the Travail trailer, it is suggested that this is where the epilogue of the game will take place. The trailer also suggests that we will be fighting Dainsleif here at the end of our journey, with him saying that if we beat him, the threads of all fate will be ours to reweave. Perhaps the Sea of Flowers is the threads of all fate, with each flower representing a person, an event, or something like that. Interestingly, the Sea of Flowers is made up of Intivat flowers, which is the flower in Lumine's hair and also the national flower of Khaenri'ah. Dainsleif tells us that they only last 2 weeks before wilting, but if someone were to take it out of Khaenri'ah, the petals would stop growing and turn hard. When the flower is finally returned to the soil of its homeland, the petals would grow soft once again and finally turn to dust. Because of this, the Intivat is seen as a symbol for a wanderer far from home. Also, the centers of the Intivat flowers in Lumine's hair change color based on the element she is currently aligned with, suggesting a link between the flower and the elements. Within the Sea of Flowers, the Intivat centers are seen glowing as well. As for the location of the Sea of Flowers, it's hard to say for certain. It could be located deep underground like Khaenri'ah, up in Celestia, or perhaps even beyond the firmament. Based on the name of the Intivat, I think it is likely that it will be located somewhere outside of the human realm. Now, I'd also like to mention the Dandelion Sea, a mythical area located in or around Mondstadt. I talked about this area in my Mondstadt expansion video a few months back, so if you want to hear more of my thoughts on it, you can check that out. Also, it was brought to my attention that a Sea of Dandelions was mentioned in Bennett's Hangout event. During this hangout, Bennett takes us to the Stormbearer Mountains to see a Sea of Dandelions, but by the time we get there, the dandelion seeds have all blown away. While this small area is likely not the real Dandelion Sea, it may have some connections to it in terms of symbolism. Perhaps the dandelions in the Dandelion Sea only have seeds during certain times of the day or year due to the wind. The Dandelion Sea could also be another variation of the Sea of Flowers. There could be multiple Sea of Flowers, each with different flowers, or perhaps there is one that changes the appearance of the flowers based on who is perceiving them. Anyways, staying on the topic of Mondstadt flowers, I'd like to discuss the four shades of the Primordial One and some flowers they may be related to. To start off, I'd like to talk about Istaroth and Cecilias. Cecilias are rare flowers from Mondstadt, only being found around Starsnatch Cliff and the Thousand Winds Temple. It is said that Cecilias only grow where harsh winds blow, and that they are just as intangible as the true heart of an unbound soul. Additionally, the lore of the Sacrificial Weapon series tells us that the Thousand Winds Temple is where the people of Mondstadt used to worship Istaroth, alongside the animal Archon Barbatos. Of course, these flowers growing in the area where the God of Time was once worshipped doesn't instantly connect them, but there is something that helps solidify the link. During Raiden's second story quest, we get a cutscene where Yae Miko helps send us back into Raiden Makoto's realm of consciousness. In this cutscene, we see many shards of glass fly by, showing some of the traveler's memories and of Raiden A. However, we also see a couple of shards that contain Cecilias. Later on in the quest, we learn that Makoto likely got help from Istaroth for her plan with A and the Sacred Sakura. Istaroth's involvement would then explain the presence of Cecilia's in that cutscene, and also connects her to the flower even more. This did get me thinking though, what if each of the 4 shades had a flower or flowers linked to them? So I did a little bit of research into more flowers and how they could connect with the other shades. Before I get into the other shades though, I would like to mention some other flowers that could be linked to Istaroth. The first 2 are dandelions and windwheel asters, mainly due to her connection to Mondstadt and to wind. Of the 2, dandelions seem like they would be more linked to her, especially with the fleeting nature of the seeds. There are also the sakura blooms in Inazuma. Technically, these aren't flowers, but I wanted to mention them, as Istaroth did help Makoto with creating the sacred sakura, so she would likely have some sort of connection to them. Now, I talked about Istaroth in a theory video a little bit ago, in which I went over which characters may be connected to her. One of these characters was Guizhong, meaning the Glaze Lily would also have a connection to Istaroth. However, it could also have a connection to another shade. Anyways, another character was Nabu Malikata, the goddess of flowers. If she is related to the god of time, then the Nilopala lotus and the original Patisara would likely be linked to the god of time as well. Anyways, I think it's time to talk about the other 3 shades of the Primordial One. Unlike Istaroth, we know next to nothing about these shades, not even what they are the gods of. There is a popular theory though that the shades are represented by the artifact categories, with the Primordial One being the circlet. This would make the shades the god of life, the god of death, Istaroth the god of time, and the god of space or void. For the sake of this video, I'll be going with these titles, as I really do like this theory. So then, let's get into these other shades and the flowers they could be linked to. I'd like to start with the god of death, as they are the reason I was inspired to make this video in the first place. For this shade, I found 3 flowers that could be linked to them. To start off, we have the silk flower. This flower is crimson in color, and is also the local specialty used by Hu Tao, the director of the Wangsheng Funeral Parlor. Speaking of Hu Tao, she has another set of crimson flowers on her hat, those being plum blossoms. In real life, plum blossoms can signify how life is transient, eventually reaching death. This obviously ties in with Hu Tao's character, and could also be counted as another flower or plant tied to the god of death. As for the other 2 flowers, those come from Inazuma and Sumeru. The first is the Dendrobium of Inazuma, which is a vibrant plant that grows on battlefields. It is said that they bloom most enchantingly where much blood was spilled, which once again ties back to the concept of death. The last is the recently added morning flower in Sumeru. Like the silk flower, it is described as crimson, and like the Dendrobium, it blooms on ancient battlefields. It is also said that the drooping flowers of this plant seem to mourn for heroes long past who had died during ancient battles. Anyways, next up is the shade of space. For this shade, I focused on flowers that have a link to nighttime, so there are once again 3 to talk about. The first is small lampgrass, which is found in Mondstadt. During the night, they emit a little bit of light, and also make a small chime sound when you walk through them. Next up is the glaze lily, which I mentioned earlier. This extremely ancient flower only blooms at night, and it is said to transform the memories of the land into its fragrance. Additionally, this flower was connected with the goddess of dusk Guizhong, whose outfit had this spacey pattern on it. The final one for this shade is the Nilopala lotus of Sumeru. Again, I mentioned this flower earlier, but it once again only blooms at night. These flowers were related to Nabu Malikata, and were said to have bloomed at her feet while she walked the desert for 72 nights. Interestingly, the artifact set that gives us this lore, Flower of Paradise Lost, only says 72 nights, with no mention of daytime. Perhaps Nabu Malikata was related to the god of space instead of the god of time, or maybe just both. She could also be related to all of the shades, with her title of Goddess of Flowers, but that's for another video. Now, the last shade to talk about is the God of Life. For this shade, I decided to talk about flowers that relate to the ley lines, as those are vital to life and to that. The first of these is the Sakura blooms that I mentioned earlier. While the sacred Sakura was created with the help of Istaroth, it is also important in purifying the ley lines of Inazuma, so a connection to the God of Life is there as well. The next flower would be the Sumeru rose, which isn't actually a rose. It does have an alternative name though, that being Leyline Lodestar. These flowers are sensitive to the ley lines and can detect anomalies. When they do, they emit varying amounts of light, with excessive brightness meaning dangerous levels of ley line activity in the area. The last flower is also found in Sumeru, that being the Viparius. This flower is only found in the dream version of both Vanarana and the Grove of Dreams. It is said that this flower only blooms when the earth remembers. The ley lines are linked to memories and to that, so this flower fits for the God of Life as well. Anyways, that's all I have for now about Genshin's flowers. I find it really interesting how so many little things in this game can mean so much, and it makes researching the lore all the more fun. I did make videos on a few of the other topics I mentioned in this video, including Mondstadt expansions, Istaroth, Guizhong, and Nabu Malikata if you want to check those out. This was a really fun theory to talk about, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it and other topics you want me to talk about in the comments below. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Sources and further readings are also in the description if you want to check them out. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video.